Hello and welcome to Undercommon Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother... Wait, no, never mind. We'll stop there.
I'm Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly, and tonight we have a very special guest with us, Michael from the RPG Academy.
Woo.
It's me.
That's him. Here to talk about his new game and Kickstarter project, Action 12 Cinema. Michael, welcome to Undercommon Taste.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, welcome.
I'm excited that the weather has not kept us from having this interview again.
Yes, that was a little bit wild Friday night. Both of us experienced some weather issues. It never really bothered me. Like, we had some wind, but like I never had anything dangerous in my area. Are you all okay?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't actually have any wind damage at the house, but the power went out at about 2:15, came back around 4, and we're like, oh, great, we'll be able to still do the interview tonight. It'll be awesome. And then literally 10 minutes before sound check, the power went out again.
As will happen. Yeah, no, a lot of wind. There was some trees down in the roads around here. Apparently a horse trailer flipped down one of the highways in the evening, but as for me personally, no big damage or anything, just kind of a lot of sound and fury. But I love the windstorms. I love hearing the wind. I love when it rains. So I was all excited. I was just like, yay! Like a little kid.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Michael, if you would please give us... Oh, just a sec.
Nope.
Let's mute that.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit.
Just a little bit. So if you would please give us a little bit about you, a little bit of an introduction, who you are, what you do, maybe talk a little bit about your podcast, the RPG Academy, and a little bit about your project, Action 12 Cinema.
Happy to. So again, my name is Michael. I am the co-host or we have like so many shows, it's hard to say. I do a lot of stuff on the RPG Academy podcast. We've been doing the show for about 12 years, somewhere in there.
Oh, nice.
Long time. So if anything I say tonight connects with you on any level in any way, there's probably a show that we have that you might be interested in. We have shows that are interviews where we interview designers. You know, they're doing Kickstarters, sometimes not. We have shows where we do GM theory, try to help people get better at running the game. We have a bunch of different actual plays, some of them long-term, some of them one-shots of various systems, a whole bunch of stuff. Some of it we stream, some of it's podcast only. We do one every other week where we look at Kickstarters or other crowdfunding platforms and kind of call out some things you might be interested in. So again, it's just a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, nice.
I also run a small gaming convention. So in Dayton, Ohio, each year in November, it's called a Catacon. It's an objectively terrible name, but I love it, so we're going to stick with it. Last year was one of our best years ever. We almost had around 500 people that attended.
Nice.
So we're very heavily focused in role-playing games, which is a little bit unusual for a con our size. You know, we obviously board games too, but we're more role-playing than board games. And we also lean very heavily into indie RPGs. So we have the big 2 or 3. We definitely got D&D. We're going to have Pathfinder, but the majority of our events are neither of those. There are Cypher Systems, Savage Worlds, Dread, Fiasco, things that people are working on, a lot of beta tests and stuff going on there. So if you have the misfortune of being in Dayton, Ohio in November, I'm sorry, but maybe come find us. It's a lovely little group of nerds huddled around some gaming tables in November in Dayton, Ohio.
That sounds like that'd be a ton of fun to do.
It's so much work. It is so much work, but it is a lot of fun. But the thing I'm I can't talk specifically here to talk about tonight is a game that I've been working on off and on for the last few years. It kind of was born at a Catacon called Action 12 Cinema. It is a GM-less zero prep game that uses nothing but the D12s, which is the pinnacle of the polyhedral. It is objectively the best die to roll at the table.
It is objectively the best die.
It is. It is the most fun die to roll. I stand by that. And it's all about over the top
of heretics.
Action movie stuff. So it leans heavily into action movie tropes. It's neither Fast and the Furious, though both of those are better movies than I generally think our games lean into. But I grew up watching terrible action movies. I still have a fondness of my heart for them. Call the Conqueror, Alan Quartermain movies, Last Starfighter. Like those are the types of movies I grew up watching. And this game is all about telling those types of stories.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm really excited about this because I grew up with those same types of movies. Like for me, the best movie had three qualifications. It had to be a B movie.
Mm-hmm.
Had to have Chuck Heston.
Okay.
Needed zombies. World War III or end of the world scenario. Therefore, the absolute best B movie, Omega Man.
Nice. Okay. Okay. Have you ever seen I Come in Peace?
I have not.
That's a good one. It does not fit into your qualifications, but it's definitely a very bad B movie.
I love
it's
it.
one of my personal favorites. It's like an 80s cop action, but he's dealing with an alien.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I think one of the ones that I love for being as bad as it is it's actually a William Shatner movie. It's from early in his career. Called White Comanche.
Oh my.
I don't think I've even heard of that one.
I don't think so I have either.
White Comanche is a spaghetti western where William Shatner plays both of a set of identical twins.
Okay, I'm in. You've already sold me. Sold a ticket. You do not have to sell me anymore.
One is a cowboy sort of lawman, and the other one is the war chief of a group of Comanche warriors, and it actually ends with a showdown between the two brothers.
Mm.
I am guessing this movie did not age terribly well.
It did not.
Yeah.
It did not. No, it is one of the least PC movies. It is so cringe and on the level of how un-PC it is, but it is still an entertaining movie.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And I do actually, I touch on that just a little bit in the game book that I grew up watching these movies and I love them and I love them today, but these types of movies were not always great at representation.
Yeah.
And so while that is just part of things and we're moving in a positive direction, when you play the game, we don't want to lean into those. Like, it's open to anybody. We don't want, otherism. Yeah. But it is unfortunately something that's very common in those movies. So I love them because I grew up with them, but I do recognize that some of them, if not most of them, would be problematic through my eyes today.
And I am very happy you've included that with your instruction book. Because I mean, yes, again, even going back looking at like old Looney Tunes or old like John Wayne movies, things like that. Yes, we grew up with these things, but time and culture has definitely moved past a lot of those tropes and scenarios. So yeah, again, very well done keeping a mind open for that.
So one of the standard icebreaker questions that we like to ask our guests when they come on is, what is your real life character class?
See, so in game, it's always a wizard. And the reason I like to play wizards is I love to come up with overly complicated solutions to what are generally easy problems.
Okay.
I want to find the most obscure spell that's supposed to be in combat, but I use it outside of combat or something along those lines. But if I'm being honest with myself, I'm probably a bard in real life because I have managed, despite all the signs saying it shouldn't be possible, to get a lot of people to kind of buy into the stuff I do. A catacon is easily the best example of that, is that it's a completely volunteer situation. No one, including myself, gets paid. It is a lot of work and effort, and yet people keep showing up every year to just help. And like,
That's
hey,
awesome.
I'll work for you basically for free for the weekend. And they keep doing it, even though I'm like, I don't know why you're here, but thank you. So I must have some way to influence people positively. If I could tap into it intentionally, maybe I would be a lot like a despot, maybe. But right now, I just run a mildly successful convention every year.
Nice.
You might be an accidental warlock.
Maybe there might be a patron that I don't realize I'm tapping into, and one day that bill's going to come due.
Yes, time to pay the piper.
All right, so you've already sort of given us the elevator pitch for what Action 12 Cinema is. But this I want to tap into one of the descriptors that you use for it. It is a GM-less game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the first time that we have featured a creator with a GM-less game on our show. So if you would please give our listeners a little bit of a rundown of what exactly a GM-less game is and how that works as opposed to a more traditional TTRPG that would have a storyteller or a game master that would be directing the game.
Right. And, certain games are going to handle it differently, but there's certainly some overlap and commonality in them. And so I'll speak specifically to mine. So in case I'm wrong about someone else's, but basically I've heard tell that other people call these GM full rather than GM less. And essentially it means that the responsibilities for the GM is spread out amongst everyone that plays. So you don't have one person that has to be the GM, has to either prep a scenario or plan or sort of improv and respond to what everyone else is doing. So in my game, take turns being the active player. When you're the active player, you're acting a lot like the GM. You're making decisions about where you are, what else is going on, who else might be in the scene with you, what kind of opposition that you're, being imposed by. Mine's a little bit weird because of the way it's also GM-less and zero prep is that you can just describe whatever you want to have happened. The dice don't determine if what you wanted to have happened. It determines if what you said happened helped or not. Okay. So like if you're fighting a bunch of ninja, you can just describe yourself fighting ninja and taking them out and flipping this one over a cliff and throwing stars at this one and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, I've killed all the ninja. They're all dead. Great. That absolutely happened. But now you roll the dice and maybe there were just more ninja, or maybe now they're zombie ninjas. They get back up. So the dice will determine if you're actually closer to getting past that that obstacle, but you have full control over what's happening. So not all GM-less games work that way, but essentially it's just the shared responsibility. When I'm in this role, I serve as the GM. When I'm done with my turn, I pass it along, and then Jeff would be the GM, and you would run the next section, and then it would go to Ian, and they would run the next section, that kind of thing. Mine's also zero prep, where you don't have to have any idea coming into the game of what's going to happen. The game helps you figure that out in the first part of the game. You roll on a bunch of D12 charts, and it kind of gives you the general plot to your movie, who the bad guy is, what the obstacles are, all that kind of good stuff. But essentially, you're just taking turns of being the GM or GM type of person, but it rotates around so that you don't have that weight of responsibility of, well, I have to read I have to prep the game, or I have to build encounters, or whatever the case may be. We remove that in my version of it. I hope I answered that well.
Yeah. No, you covered that great. And I was thinking when I was reading your Kickstarter and going through this, what this kind of reminded me of is the old school writing prompt where you get it. You'd have a group of students together, and everyone has to write a paragraph. So the first person writes a paragraph about whatever, and then they pass the story along. Mm-hmm. And the next person writes their paragraph to kind of butt up against that. And this game has that feel to it. So it can be extremely, very creative. It can be very wild. It can be very contained. It just depends on who gets the page next type thing. And I think this has so much potential for a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've never heard that. I remember in school, one of my favorite things we did was they would give you a sheet of paper that just had like some sort of like half of an object, like a J hook or a squiggly line or whatever. And they would say, you draw something using that as a basis. I still, this day, I'm well into my 40s. That was probably 35 years ago. I still remember doing that in school because I loved it so much. But I don't remember the writing version of that. But that is a great touch point for what we do. Because when I'm in control, if I'm the first active player, I have a lot of control of setting what things mean. Like we might roll that we're in a fight. So one of the common obstacles in my game is fight, because it's an action movie. You're going to have all kinds of fights. Yeah. But whoever goes first in Act 1, you kind of get to determine a lot of the specifics, like where are you during this fight? Is it one big thing, or is it a whole bunch of little things? Are they mechanized ninja? Are they zombie ninja? Whatever. But once it's created, it has to stay true. It's like an improv game. You don't override someone else's input unless you're doing it on purpose, because it is also a bad movie. So sometimes things happen just because, like, you can lean into joke, we ran out of money, so that's why there were 7 zombies, but now there's 2, or it's just the same guy in 3 different scenes, type of a thing.
But for the most part, like Monty Python film at that point.
Yes, and GM-less games do usually lean more silly. Because you kind of have that opportunity to build off of someone else, and it tends to lead into exaggeration. And again, we just lean into that. If something doesn't make sense, it's intentional because it's a bad movie. But yeah, I do love that idea that it's just like, okay, I've created so much, and now I pass it to you, and you get to build off of what I've created, and then it comes back around a couple times. And yeah, it definitely leans into the absurd. Like, there's probably a version out there of like a really dramatic, serious GMless game. I have yet to encounter one, and mine is certainly not that.
Yeah, and
I could totally see like a Rick and Morty scenario.
and
yeah, very, very much.
And that's something that we see a lot because you don't typically associate improv with drama.
Right.
You hear improv, the first word that your brain wants to put after it is comedy. Because it is a sort of comedic, farcical thing, to just sort of string things along stream of consciousness. It's not really something that lends itself well to serious conversation.
I'm curious. I would love if not even just like a dramatic show. Like, I'd love to go to a dramatic improv show just to see how it would work. Probably not very well, but I'd like to experience that because it could be interesting.
Okay, I have the perfect cast for that though. That needs to be Sir Ian McClellan.
Okay.
Patrick Stewart. Tim Curry. And then whoever else you want to fill, but with those three, you'd have the perfect cast.
Kermit the Frog. That would be my fourth.
Yeah, there we go. Kermit the Frog, perfect. Yes.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to call out that that I have found kind of retro, like I didn't engineer it that way, but I've realized it through the process of developing a GMless game, that GMless games are very good at teaching people how to be GMs for other games. Yes. So if you're someone who is a player who's thinking about like, I kind of want to DM, but I'm not sure if I'm qualified, which that's dumb. Yes, you are. Do it. Even if it's terrible, it'll get better. But if you're like, I don't know if I could do X or Y, or you play with someone who's really good at doing X or Y, and you're like, compared to them, I'm not great. Play some GMless games because you only have a little bit of sliver of control. You really can't screw it up so bad that the next person can't fix it. If you can, you're exceptional. You should lean into that because something about you is amazing. But it's a great way to just like, I'm going to GM for 5 minutes out of this 30-minute game, not 30 minutes out of it. And it lets you stretch your legs. It lets you kind of play around. And you will be better at running traditional games if you play some GMless games.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense. Again, it's that learning by doing, and it does give you a very safe area to kind of stretch your wings out. No, I love that.
And I will repeat what I have said here before, is that sucking at a thing is the first step to getting kind of good at a thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because if you suck at it, that you at least did it, which means that you're closer to being good at it than someone who has never tried it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've said that many times, slightly differently, but I say your first game won't be your best game, but you can't get to your best game until you've gotten past your first game.
Absolutely.
So you'll be better than you think. Like you'll think it's a disaster, but it'll actually be better than that. But you will get better over time. So start now, and you'll get better faster.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So why did you decide to use D12s for your game, and is it because it is the objectively superior die?
So it is the objectively superior die, but you have those in reverse order. I created a game to make you roll D12s.
Okay.
Like that, literally the start of this game, it used to have a name. It was called Michael's Ridiculously and Needlessly Overly Complicated Rules Light RPG. Mr. Mystical Piddleblick. And it was just like a joke of like, I'm going to make a game where people roll in 10, 15 D12s at a time because I truly love the D12. Not enough games use them. And it truly was just like a joke. It was just like, this is silly, but it'll be fun. I'll run my own convention. I'll run a couple of sessions. It'll be great. Did that. And it was actually a lot of fun because I didn't tell everyone that this was just a joke. I was like, hey, I'm working on my own game. And it was like almost like a sarcastic sort of thing. Like over time, people could figure out that like, again, it was overly complicated, but it was supposed to be rules light. And people started getting the joke. Time and time again, after we ran the game, people would go, that was actually a lot of fun. It was actually a lot of fun. Rolling D12s and playing improv with your friends is a good time.
Yeah.
So I started cutting back on all the ridiculously and needlessly overcomplicated parts and left in the D12s and the improv with your friends. And it just got more and more streamlined, it actually did become a rules light game. And then finally, sort of the missing piece of the puzzle was the movie aspect. Just, I love action movies. I've grown up with them my whole life, but originally it wasn't an action movie simulator. It was actually like a space, like a Star Trek. It was almost more like a TV show rather than movie. We did things like act breaks and commercial breaks. And sometimes it'd be a joke like, what's the commercial? Is it a reverse mortgage commercial here type of a thing? And then it was when the action movie thing hit, it's like, oh, okay, now it's everything. So it started with a way to get you to roll D12s, and it became a game later.
They're my dice, and I want them now.
Yes!
J.G. Wentworth, 877 dice now.
I was literally about to quote a J.G. Wentworth ad. So, yeah, I'm glad we're sharing a brain cell right now. It's wonderful. So, you have on your Kickstarter page a link to an actual play test of your game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was is it Rook and Rasp that did that?
Rook and Rasp. That's a streaming game, and then there's a podcast only, like an audio only one I did with Tabletop Journeys.
Okay.
There's now one that I did on my channel that would be out. I don't think it's linked in the Kickstarter, and I'm supposed to do another one next week with the Cantrip Cast. But we're still solidifying that, so I don't think that's been announced. So exclusive for your audience. But if it doesn't happen, don't blame me. There's a lot of moving pieces and parts to that.
Yeah, and we've had the guys from Tabletop Journeys over here. They're great folks. So go check that one out too.
Yeah.
So how long would you say on average it takes to run a game of Action 12 Cinema from beginning to end through all 3 acts?
Yeah. So I would say, again, like most RPGs, I say like 4 hours is a pretty good block for that. But I would say that this actually probably would be closer to 5 if you're learning as you go. Every time I've played the game, I'm teaching as I go. And so I'm always like saying, well, you can do this now, or you could do this. Or when someone does, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. So let me explain how that works with the rules. If you know what you're doing, I think you could easily play the game in 3 hours, 3.5 probably on the far side. But when you're learning the game, it definitely takes longer.
And
it's broken into. Oh, go ahead.
And that's something that we run into a whole lot with any game, really. It always takes longer that first time. So.
The explanation. So it happens in 2 main phases. There's what I call the pre-production phase. That's where you roll on the charts and you figure out your genre and your bad person and the plot and the obstacles, and you create your characters, and basically you do all the setup. And there's the second half, which is where you actually play the game in loosely a 3-act structure. And on most of the streams I've done, or the playtests, I should say, it takes about an hour to an hour and a half to do the pre-production phase. It takes about the same amount of time, hour to hour and a half, 2 hours to play the game. So you're looking at 3.5 to 5 hours. I had one group who did the playtest without me. Like one of them had played before. He played in one of my playtests at Catacon. He really liked the game. I sent him an early copy of the rules, and he ran a session with his home group, which I was actually very excited about because it was the first time anyone had ever played the game when I wasn't physically there to direct it. And he said they took 7 hours.
Oh, wow.
to do the pre-production phase.
Wow.
And they really, really got into it, and they had a lot of fun working out their characters and their relationships. So they had a blast, just that. And then they came back the next day and actually played the game. So they're like 12 hours into one session. And I'm like, that sounds terrible. They loved it. They absolutely loved it. So I would say 3.5 on the very, very small, short side and 12 hours on the top side. But average, we'll say 4.5 to 5.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, to each their own, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're having fun, keep going with it. Yeah, that's
you're doing it right. Part. Absolutely. But yeah, I would have been pulling hair out.
You have to sit here for 20 more minutes. It's not that.
Yeah.
All right. So, and as I understand it from watching a couple of the actual plays, Action 12 Cinema is based very heavily in B-movie tropes. Like everything is based on a groundwork of a bunch of tropes that you pick from to assemble the game as a whole.
So sort of.
Okay.
A trope specifically, there's a mechanic in the game for tropes. We encourage you to use them all the time. Just the common stuff that,
Right.
You never reload your weapon, you don't look at explosions, that kind of good stuff. But during the game, you have the chance to select from some charts that you roll on of the specific ones that you can use for mechanical benefit.
Okay.
And so that's the way, like if you can't quite get to a maximum die pool, which is normally 5 D12s, narratively or whatever the situation is, you can't quite get to 5. That's an easy way to get another free die or two, is just to work in some of the tropes. But the pre-production phase, so you roll for your genre. So you can just pick. All the charts are always inspirational. They're never restrictive. So you can just choose to play a space western or sci-fi or fantasy or adventure, whatever the case may be. And then you roll for the big BBEG, your big bad evil person, right? But all of those, and then you roll for your plot, like what they're trying to do or what's going on, and then you roll for your obstacles, because all the challenges are abstracted from obstacles. But if you just read through the charts, it's very clear that I've just watched way too many movies, and I've kind of broken it down into these sort of like general things. Like one of the challenges is something must be found. It's very common in movies. We got to find the person and we got to find the thing. Chase is one. Quicksand is one, because how many movies have quicksand, right? So the tropes are a small part of it, but the entire game, especially if you can like read where I filed the serial numbers off of things, it's very clear where the inspiration came from. It's like the moon crashes into the earth is one of the plots.
Awesome.
Flood the world by melting the glaciers. That's one. Aliens from the future is one of them. That type of thing. So it's like, okay, I see where this is coming from. So it definitely leans heavily into B-movie action commonalities, but then tropes is specifically different. I may be being pedantic about trying to break that into two,
Okay.
but you're not wrong, but there is a specific delineation in the game of the two.
No, I can understand that. No, I love that though. After hearing this, I kind of want to see, and you say you run a con, so this gives you a ton of time to do it, but I would love to see someone like run this game and then take that and then on top of it, run like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 panel on top of like the game in the background would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, you could you could take one of the streams like Rook and Rasp, and you could do that. Like if you edited it, like edit out all the talk and explanation and just had people doing the movie. So it would be possible, but
that'd be a lot of fun.
It would be a lot of work though. But yeah, maybe if it does, maybe I'll make that a stretch goal. If I hit $50,000, because we're not going
All right. Yeah. So what were some of the interesting combinations of tropes that were selected for mechanical advantage that showed up during your play tests? Were there any combinations that really linger, that stick out?
Because you were kind enough to send me some of the questions ahead of time, so I've been trying to remember. My brain is just mush. There's like, if you ever run a Kickstarter before, like it's the only thing on your mind.
Right.
So about the only thing I can remember is the game I just played recently. And one of them is a nitrous boost. So think Fast and the Furious, but anytime you're on any sort of vehicle, if you can cause it to go really fast than normal, it's a nitrous boost. And in that game, we were in an enchanted magical land that we got there through Manhattan, and we were riding on the back of dragonflies. So we were chasing sky pirates. We jumped on their dragonflies and were fighting. And one of us had a gun that we brought in from our world, and they shot it, but it scared the dragonfly, so it actually flew faster. Oh, so nice. We had a window jump. So you jumped out of a window onto a dragonfly, and then they shot their gun, but then that caused the dragonfly to fly really fast. And then on my turn, I did the kitchen chase, which is one of my all-time favorite tropes. It's where an action movie scene goes through a working kitchen. So you have people who are actively like trying to cook and plate and do dishes, and you're just running through the middle of it. So I kind of did that but it was a dinner party. So this person kept turning around trying to like set the plates, and I would drive through with my dragonfly and wreck the place. But it was play like comedy because they never saw me. They just kept turning around, and it was a disaster every time. So those are like the three that we kind of used recently that stuck out in my mind.
Oh, that sounds incredibly fun.
Excellent. Yeah. That does sound very entertaining.
Yes, it does.
It makes me laugh. And most of the things I do, as long as I'm having a good time, I don't really worry about anybody else.
Yeah, there you go. Oh.
So James, I've been asking all the questions. I ought to
Yeah,
I ought to sit here and let you.
I've just been kind of jumping in. No, I love this concept. I love working these. I like how you brought up how improv, and so even if you're not doing this as a game for like a table or a gaming group, but if you're an instructor or a club coach or something like that for your drama clubs, for your improv clubs, I think this could really be utilized in that, because it's not going to be the same thing that your students or your club members are going to see all the time. So it'll make them stretch themselves a bit, which again, I am a huge fan of trying to present something just a little off center or a little different for people, so it's not what they see every day.
Right.
And this is that just beautifully wrapped up. I love it.
The random charts, I mean, there's a lot of, if you played it 1,000 times, you might start to get some repetition, but for the most part, there's enough variance that you're going to be able to, and you always have the ability to mix and match.
Right.
When, for example, like I mentioned quicksand. So quicksand is one of the obstacles that you can face in the game, but you still have the ability to kind of interpret it based off of what's happening. So if you go and listen to that game I did with Tabletop Journeys, which is a fabulous example of the game, like I think it really does, like that's what the game's going to be like at your table. So we had decided that shrinking was part of the plot. Again, we rolled it.
Okay.
So instead of it being quicksand where we're literally in half mud, half water, and we're sinking, we interpreted quicksand as the building was being shrank while we were still inside of it, and we had to get out before it shrank all the way. So that's how all the obstacles are very sort of like generically broad, so that your version of quicksand in this movie with all these other selections might be literal quicksand, or it could be you're trying to get up a shrinking building. And that's by design. Like they're all very broadly interpretable, if that's a word, so that each time it can be different. In one of the play tests, we decided it was going to be like an 80s forward action movie, but when we rolled our bad guy, we rolled wizard. So we decided, okay, well, it's going to be like an 80s tech company called Wizard Corp, and the CEO is just called the Wizard.
Okay,
so you can always make it work even if it doesn't quite. So you can always just ignore the results, or you can find a way to make it make sense as much as it needs to for a bad action movie.
What is this, a castle for ants? No, I love it.
and that is the reason why the little program that runs to install your software is called a wizard.
Yes.
Exactly. Ooh.
Well done. Well played. Yes.
It looks like you're writing a letter.
Clippy is evil.
All right. Well, I think we really blew through all those questions. Sorry.
No,
I can talk more. I really like talking.
I am so excited about this, and I know I've seen your Kickstarter, and I know you guys are like right on the edge of that goal. So I just
looked at it. We're less than $300 away right now.
Yeah, so I mean that's what, like another 20-25 supporters, and you've still got more than 2 weeks to go. So this isn't like one of those Kickstarters where it's like a shot in the wind. This one really looks like it's going to come through. So definitely back this one. I'll probably wind up be backing this one personally this week, just because it sounds honestly like a ton of fun. But yeah, I mean, just so once you go and you run through this, once your Kickstarter ends, I should say, how long do you think it's going to take, estimate for production and all that to actually present and get out?
Yeah. So I have someone helping me, because that was the part, as I've run multiple Kickstarters for Catacomb. We run one every year. So I'm pretty comfortable with running that, but this is the first time I've ever written and produced a book. So I was kind of worried about that. Again, I've heard horror stories that, someone has a very successful Kickstarter and then they go bankrupt because they didn't do their stuff right. So I've got someone helping me with that side of it. I've estimated a year for delivery of physical, but I don't think it's going to take anywhere near that long. I wanted to be Scotty from Star Trek. I wanted to underpromise, overdeliver. So basically, once the Kickstarter is over, within about 2 weeks, I'm going to send the PDF to everybody in the current state. And it doesn't have any art. It's kind of plain looking, but you're going to get the rules even if I don't do anything else. Everyone's going to get a digital copy of it within about 2 weeks. But there's some things that I've added that aren't in the current copy. Like the game with Tabletop Journeys led to a new mechanic, the needle drop. So if you start singing songs, you can get bonuses and that kind of stuff.
Ooh, nice.
So I'm still going to write. It won't even be in the body. Just like at the end, it'll be like, this is a new mechanic I've written. This is a new rule I've written. But everyone's going to get that within 2 weeks.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's great.
I'm still incorporating art. Again, this is another exclusive. Since we're getting really close to funding, we're going to start announcing stretch goals. My first stretch goal is for more art. I absolutely love the art. I think it's fantastic. The two artists I'm working with right now, I love them to death. I love what they're doing. And I actually want to go back and pay them more for what they've already done and then commission some additional art. So our first stretch goal is going to be increased art budget. And then when you add art, though, you have to do layout again. So I'm going to give myself 2 months to go through the book one more time, rewrite a few sections, add in those things that I've changed and the new rules, and then it's going to go to art and layout. I'm actually hoping that within like 6 months, it'll be ready to go, but then I don't know what the timeline from the publisher will be. We're using a US-based publisher. Publisher, I think it's the right word, whatever, producer, whatever. So we're not having it done in China, which adds like 6 weeks of transport time. Yeah. We also don't know what their timetable is. Like if I give them the book on Tuesday, they may not be able to print it till months. Like I don't know their schedule. So I gave ourselves a year, hoping it's going to be closer to 6 months. But
that's not terrible at all. I mean, that's actually fairly quick. And so, I mean,
because the game's done, that's the thing. Like it needs to be, it's part of the Kickstarter. I want to rewrite one more time because I've never written a book before and I know it can be improved. And me just teaching the game so many times now, like I want to rewrite the book a little bit to use some of the same examples I've kind of stumbled upon that seem to work. But the game is playable right now. I can give you the rules. You could run it yourself. It could be pretty-fied a little bit. So it's not like I have to finish the book. I just have to touch it up a little bit.
I mean, Thanksgiving dinner, you could be sit there. Hey, let's bust this out. Have everyone on the table and just start throwing dice.
Well, my convention's in November, so part of me is kind of hoping I'll have copies there.
Yeah,
so that, lovely. Yeah, people who missed the Kickstarter, maybe they can buy one for me.
Awesome. So going through, you talked about these action movies you grew up. What are your favorite tropes within these action movies and stuff? Well, like what was the one that always, like, if it was in there, it didn't matter. You're going to sit down and watch it because it sang to you.
So some of my favorites, again, I mentioned the kitchen chase. That's a classic. It's happening a lot. I think there's several Jackie Chan movies that have used a version of that. Bullet catch. So I grew up watching a movie called The Last Dragon. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Bruce Leroy catches bullets with his teeth against Shogun. So he literally catches a bullet with his teeth. Hallway fight. This is not a B movie, but the Daredevil hallway fight is just like the best example of that ever. Shoot the rope from the Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie, where you have to shoot the arrow and to save them from being hung. And shooting something so it explodes. This goes from Deadpool when he shot the hand grenade on the bridge fight, all the way back to Blazing Saddles when the Waco Kid had to shoot the dynamite from the ridge so that the fake rock ridge was up with all of the men inside. So shooting things so they explode is always a classic.
Awesome.
Right. So what are some of your favorite B movies in general? I know you listed a couple, but
Big Trouble in Little China is absolutely one of the best
classic.
movies.
Yeah.
And some of those, they borderline not into B movies, like they're just good movies, but I do love Big Trouble in Little China and The Thing, two of my favorite movies, and they've definitely inspired my GMing style. Tremors, which I think is a perfect movie, but it's still kind of a B movie. The Last Starfighter.
Absolutely.
Again, Call the Conqueror, the Alan Quatermain movies, which again, they're basically bad Indiana Jones ops, but I think that Alan Quatermain is probably an older character, just not done as well. There's a lot of monster movies. Like I loved, the bad Godzilla movies, like where he fights the big lobster dude. I can't remember the name of that one. When he has the son Gadzuki, or her has a son Gadzuki, because I think Godzilla is canonically a woman. The Fast and the Furious movies. Like, I know they're big budget blockbusters, but they're B movies at best. So they don't make any damn sense. But they're absolutely fun to watch. Like, I used to not like them. I really do. I'm like, these are dumb. One day I went in and watched, I think it was the fifth one. I'm like, this is a D&D campaign. It's in modern, so it's D20 modern, but they're doing absolutely the same stuff that I would do in a D&D campaign. And then it's like, oh, I get it now. And now I love them because they don't make any sense. To think of they're like a D&D, they're doing the stuff that you would do in an RPG. 100%. I love those.
I've heard things that apparently Vin Diesel is like a huge TTRPG
Yeah, he's a gamer.
fan.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it might be the fifth one. I think it's the fifth one where you have someone in a car and they're being chased and they're trying to evade capture. And they're going to move the person that they're traveling with to a different car without people watching know. And the way they orchestrate this is they have two cars that are going right at each other, and they go under an underpass. And while they're under the underpass, they start doing donuts around each other, and then they transfer the person from the inside window to the other inside window, because even though they're doing donuts, the windows are only like a foot apart. So this all happens in like 10 seconds, and then they keep going the direction they were originally traveling. So from the helicopter, looks like nothing happened. I'm like, I can see my characters doing that with like a carriage. You know, basically you're doing donuts in a carriage underneath the bridge. And so once you realize that's what this is, role-playing games, it makes a lot of sense. So I do actually enjoy those from that level. Trying to think, Ice Pirates, Time Pirates, Buckaroo Banzai, and going through the eighth dimension. There's so many of them, but those are probably the ones that are coming to mind right now.
Okay.
Actually, I have a list of inspirational movies in the book. If you want to indulge me, I can answer some other questions, but I will actually pull up it because I listed, because you can, you roll it on a chart to see what genre you're going to play. So I have
Starship Troopers make the list?
No, but it probably should be on there somewhere.
Because that is absolutely a B movie. I love that movie. Absolutely a B movie.
Yeah.
So, I won't go through all these, but I have them broken down by genre. So under action, adventure, Big Trouble in Little China, Alan Quartermain, and then even Romancing the Stone, which I love that movie.
I haven't seen that one in forever.
So creature feature, we got Humanoids from the Deep, Them, and then all the Piranha movies, Action Disaster, Armageddon, The Core. You want to see a sci-fi, The Core, the Earth's Core, Stop Rotating.
I forgot about that one.
Beastmaster, Master of the Universe, Labyrinth, The Thing, Fright Night, Bloodsport, Universal
Gordon.
Soldier. Definitely Flash Gordon. If it's not on there, it should be. I love that one. Robinson Crusoe on Mars, The Shadow, The Phantom, Firestarter, and The Quick and the Dead is like under Western. So yeah, there's a whole list for every genre. I have 2 or 3 movies that, like, if you're not sure what this is the touch point for the type of movie that you'll be playing through.
John Carpenter. Yeah, that needs to be up on there too.
You mean John Carter?
Yeah, John Carter. Yeah.
John Carpenter was the director of The Thing.
Yes,
yeah. I always get those mixed up. Yeah.
The Thing, Halloween, and definitely.
One that I really enjoy is Dead Snow. Are you familiar with that one? It was a Swedish film that involved a bunch of college kids going and getting a cabin out in the woods and having to fight off Nazi zombies coming after the Jew gold that they hid in the cabin.
Okay. So it's so funny that you mentioned this, because I listened to a podcast and they talk about movies, and just the last 3 weeks they've done a best zombie movie like draft. Ooh. And they actually brought up that movie, and they said that, like, we know no one's going to vote for this one, but they talked about it. So it's like, when you said that name, I was like, why have I heard? Yeah, they just talked about this on the show, Trial by Content. Yeah, they talked about that last week.
There was one that just became this instant cult classic, and so they made a sequel to it. I can't remember. I think it was Dead Snow 2: Red versus Dead, where it ended up. They end up bringing in a bunch of Soviet communist zombies to fight the Nazi zombies.
As you do.
As you do.
Of course. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it was great. It was great. And the second one, they realized what they had, and so they played up the schlock. Like they turned that dial all the way up to 11 and snapped it right off. But,
see, that sounds a lot like what they did for Evil Dead 2 and then Army of Darkness after that, which are
they definitely gave it the Army of Darkness treatment.
Nice.
Because the first one was obviously trying to be a serious movie,
right?
Mm-hmm. And it does come across as a serious attempt at a movie, which I really appreciate in a B budget movie. I have a very low tolerance for cringe in my B movies. So it's I don't like the B movies that, like, Sharknado, that were designed to be bad. Right. I want it to be a genuine attempt at a decent movie that just falls short.
It falls short. I think the bar is I think it's easier to clear if you're trying to do something and you just don't succeed. This is where you're trying to be schlocky. I think you actually have to. I think it's harder to do a intentionally schlocky movie well than it is to try to do a good movie that doesn't quite get there, but it still becomes like, of a cult classic type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to think of a good example, but I agree. Like my tolerance is going to be higher or lower for someone who's just failing. Like I'm gonna feel for them versus someone's like, hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We know what we're doing. Like, you got to press me there.
I think the first Scary Movie kind of does that. They were intentionally trying to mock B movies and things and the first one they pull it off fairly well. And then by the time you get to like Scary Movie 43 or whatever they had, they kind of went to the well too many times.
Yeah.
So I will announce that someone just backed because, of course, I'm watching it. So we're now less than $250 away.
Excellent.
Actually, we're $253. I'm bad at math, but that's still, it's like 10, 15 people, depending on which level they back. We could be there any moment.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely. All right. So I think I am done with the questions on my end. James, do you have any more?
No, I think I'm good on my side.
All right. Well, then, one of the things that we love to do with our guests when they come on is play a little game that we call the Monster Mashup, where we roll some dice on our random monster mashup table and create a monster on the fly. So, Michael, if you are ready and willing, we will go ahead and get that started.
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
All right. Let me do. So let's go ahead and get a D4 roll, if you would, please, for locomotion.
All right, I got a 4.
A 4. Let's see here. This laptop. A 4. It swims.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
I need to get a piece of paper that I can write this on because I am incredibly organized tonight. In case you haven't noticed.
Now, again, too, we can play fast and loose, much like you do with like your quicksand rules and things like that.
Okay.
Swimming is can be very nebulous. I think we had some things that swam through like the EM spectrum, or some that swam through the area. Again, we do have some wiggle room with this.
Yeah, we had one that swam through the earth.
Yeah.
Once.
Yep.
So that is something that is up for interpretation. Next is a D6 roll for what does it eat?
Potatoes.
I will tell you that I use double D6s because I don't like 6-siders. So it's a 12 side, but it just goes to 6 twice. And I got a 4. So I'm rocking the 4s tonight. Yeah.
All right. It eats fruits/vegetables.
Okay. So I'm saying something like eaten from the kelp forest, maybe some sea cucumbers.
Possibly.
Maybe something like a coral reef, perhaps, keeping with the ocean theme.
Mm-hmm.
Again, possibly something along like the lines if you want to do like stream or fresh water.
Well, this next one is going to inform this greatly. Another D6, please, for size.
Size.
1. It is tiny.
Tiny.
We are not doing bot flies, James.
Oh, fine.
We already did one that was basically bot flies, didn't we? The one with Sam?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. Just bot flies always come up.
What's that parasite thing that swims up your pee and then
we had one of those too, the
urethra?
vampire fish.
Yeah,
we had one of those.
We have had one of those too, and it was tiny as well. The necrophage, yeah.
Yes, I think I promised after the last one I would try to make a happy thing. So okay, no bot flies on this one. Maybe seahorses or sea monkeys.
Sea monkeys, yeah. We could do that. Okay. All right. Next is going to be a D8 for social organization.
6.
Gang, 11 to 25 individuals.
Okay.
So maybe something like some water pixies or some water nymphs.
Potentially.
Trying to think happy thoughts here. Happy thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what sort of gang sort of critter could we throw into a bad B movie?
Let me see.
Something that would feed on fruit or veggies. That feed on plant matter.
I'm kind of like leaning into sort of like a plankton situation where
Okay.
they're not the concern. It's what eats them is the concern.
Okay.
So
Okay.
these things come up on shore. We're like, oh, look, these little tiny like minnow looking things. And then the thing comes out after them and happens to get us as
Okay,
well.
so they're kind of like a herald, or just like they're a bad omen. Okay.
Yes. So if you see them, you need to run.
Okay, no, I like it.
All right. This next one is going to also inform a great deal. A D10 roll, please, for native environment.
3.
3. All right, can you give me one more roll for even or odd?
Yes. Even.
Even. Freshwater coastal.
Okay.
This works.
This does work. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have sort of
They're
a
gum buddies.
prehistoric creature, like in a lock
Yeah.
sort of a thing. Which I mean, we don't necessarily have because I'm almost like cheating because I'm taking away the thing and trying to do the other thing. Maybe it's something that gains sentience, like it's like a swarm hive, and they
Okay.
naturally fall into these smaller groups. But if something were to happen, like a queen shows up and draws a bigger swarm, their intelligence sort of like,
I'm going to go ahead and reference a B movie here. Creature from the Black Lagoon.
ooh, okay, that's a good one.
Yeah. Or even, was it Swamp Creature? Swamp
Swamp
The
Thing?
DC comic? Yeah,
Well,
Swamp
there's
Thing.
Swamp Thing. There's also
Yeah.
Humanoids from the Deep,
Yeah.
which is a rip off of Creature from the Black Lagoon.
So that this is still working fairly good so far. So maybe these things are like his pets, and if you mess with them, then he's going to come and.
Well, there's a series of books called the Sword of Truth, Terry
Yes.
Goodkind,
Yes.
and there are those gar that use their flies like a detection system. So these flies swarm around the gar, but they go and bite things. They're like a really stinging little bite. And when the thing gets stings, like yips and runs away, the gar attacks it. So maybe it's something like that. It's like a some semi-parasitic sort of thing that these creatures, they go around, but they're just a nuisance to other living creatures. So it causes them to swim away or whatever. And then this thing attacks them.
Okay. No, I like that.
Yeah.
The first 4 of those books are really good. The last 15 are terrible. And I know I've read them all.
I stopped reading about
Good for
8
you.
or 9 because he starts going some weird directions.
Yeah. Yeah. But those first 4,
Yeah.
really good. Do not finish. You don't need to read past that. Just stop.
Yeah, that was one of those series that I just never got around to starting. I have like the first 2 or 3 books, and I just never got around to starting them.
I really enjoyed Wizard's First Rule, and like I said, then he kind of went some weird directions, and
I agree. So I would not encourage you to read them now. But the first few are very enjoyable, but man, they get so kind of honestly bad. They just get bad later on. But he's also got some weird politics I don't agree with. So
yeah, I mean, he started going full Ayn Rand on some things.
Basically, yes, he's full Ayn Rand at this point.
Hooray!
Yay!
So, just because a lot of B movies do try to pull in some sort of, ecological, environmental aspect, often very ham-handedly. I could definitely see this being something that comes out of a very polluted river. Especially, talking about the river in Cincinnati or one of the other rivers in New England that became so polluted that it actually caught fire.
Yeah.
I used to live in Cleveland. That was a big thing.
Cleveland, not Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
Cleveland. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, even going, modern with recent, but that Norfolk train wreck.
Yeah.
In Ohio, the waters through there are getting pretty fairly well fouled up. I can talk today, I promise.
It's late.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right. Time to break out the D12.
Yay, my favorite.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, so this first one is for method of defense.
6.
Giant buddy.
6. It has horns.
Okay.
Okay. And again, this kind of goes as maybe it stings something or something along those lines and provokes some sort of reaction. So yeah.
It could also just be that common thing where like if a predator bites it, it hurts.
Yeah.
So it's like those like ridge plate sort of thing that
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just
that'd be
as
kinda
its
great.
defense
Well,
as it.
because bite and venomous bite are actually on this list as separate items. I'm thinking something more like a rhinoceros beetle kind of
Yeah, well,
deal.
he's saying if something bites it, the horns prevent it from being bitten.
Right.
Okay, yeah. So
Kinda
more
like
like
the,
spines.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I
again,
can.
given the size, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's just a prickly little thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a sea anemone,
Yeah, okay.
kind of that sort of spiny, pokey sort of deal.
Gotcha.
Okay, I can get with that. All right, another D12 roll, and this could
Yay.
really screw things up for creature type.
3.
3. It is celestial.
Mm.
It's a sea
Okay.
star.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that could work. I mean, it is
Yeah.
as in it literally fell from the sky,
Yeah,
like all Cloverfield sort of.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
So is it just visiting here? Is it stuck here? Is it adapting and overcoming like it's going to take over here? Is it
It
I could
invasive
could
say
be-
it's either
species?
visiting, it could be summoned. And again, if we were going with some sort of ecological disaster, maybe this is some sort of, divine response to the disaster.
Okay.
Or-
Okay.
playing into B movie tropes. This is a biological terraforming creature dropped on the
Oh.
planet by an alien race.
Okay, now we got Prometheus. I like it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can work with this.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Next is a D20 roll for quirks.
16.
16. This works. Parasitic / invasive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got it. So we talked about the spines. The spines are made from salt crystals. They drop these things into large ocean worlds to desalinate to create fresh water later on.
Okay.
And they are invasive because they're going to go and try to spread to create as much fresh water source as they can. So the spines, and they're going to sit there, they're going to shimmer. They're definitely going to be attractive. So they're going to have that star look with the celestial thing. Again, the spines would be made of salts and metals. So again, kind of almost Zergy-like in that case. But yeah, as they desalinate.
I would almost
Okay. And they also depollute as well if they're
Yeah.
like pulling any sort of carcinogen or whatever out.
Yeah.
And then their spines transfer that to predators.
Okay. Yeah.
I would almost want to flip that.
Okay.
Because our environment is freshwater coastal.
Okay.
So what if they are a sodium-based life form and their whole thing is to salinate fresh water because the alien race needs salt water?
What if the race is a race of cephalopods? So like squid or octopi.
So we're just bringing in mind flayers.
Yeah, pretty much.
That works.
Yeah, it does. I kinda like it.
So as you're saying, this is like the heraldic. They get dropped off here first. They're seeding our planet, and they'll come back in 1,000 years when basically all the fresh water is gone and it's all salinated and salt water. Then they come back and then they thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're playing the
It's
long
kinda like-
game.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like the opposite of the sand trout from Dune.
A little bit, yeah. Okay. Now we get to make it weird.
Of course.
Okay. Now, okay, good. So,
Yeah,
I,
we
so I
had
know
now.
where the
Yeah.
weirdness starts now. Gotcha.
Yes.
All right, so can I get a D100 roll, please?
D1. 91.
Ooh, good roll.
91. Well, good if you're not playing Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, exactly. That's
granted.
a bad roll for that. But if we were playing Marvel Face Rip, probably a red result.
All right, 91. This is an interesting one. Is the last of its kind.
Ooh.
I like this. Maybe this is their last chance at terraforming.
Well, yeah, this is why they're terraforming.
They're forming, yeah.
Because
So
they've
maybe
lost
our
their world.
water or maybe our world is so polluted, they got here and they weren't capable of terraforming so easily, and so they're dying off, and we have the last swarm.
Okay.
They're resilient to our pollution. Maybe they even thrive in the pollution. There's
Again, going back to B movies, but going through the old War of the Worlds, yeah. You know, hey, we had some bacteria they couldn't quite adjust to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. So, James, do you want to do this one or do you want me to do this one?
I got some rubber ducky dice. Let's go ahead and do it.
All right. So, give me one more D100 roll.
Alrighty here. Got that one and that one. If I get the die out. There we go. Yeah, rubber ducky die. And I dropped it, of course.
Dropped it.
Ooh. A 3.
Three. Going to the opposite end of the chart here.
Yeah.
That's a great Call of Cthulhu roll.
Yeah.
Okay, this one's going to take some figuring.
All right.
Mimics the face of its last victim.
I can see this because they're trying to mimic the world they came from because they're terraformers. And so maybe the host species found these terraforming something else, and instead of that being native to that species, they kind of scooped them up and said, hey, let's try them here.
Potentially. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we said they're not carnivores, so they're probably not destroying other...
They're herbivores.
I think how that would work. I mean, they could just like in their swarm, almost like a school of fish, like mimic that they look like something else.
Intelligence. Yeah. Okay, yeah, no,
so
I like.
So maybe from a distance, they just look like kelp or some other plant life, swaying around. So
they could mimic to look like they're predators, whatever's trying to eat them. So the predators don't come up and see them as food. So like once something kind of comes and hits the swarm, they kind of form a shape of whatever it was that was trying to eat or attack the thing. So they look like whatever that was.
And if they're intelligent, maybe they just they look like whatever the thing next to them would be afraid of. Like if they have an intelligence. Or maybe once they're bitten, it's almost like a genetic transfer of information. Like the first thing that bites it, the swarm then goes, okay, we know what scares this, and they mimic that shape or form.
Yes.
I like that too. Yes.
That screams B budget.
That does.
that screams bad sci-fi movie. That screams Sci-Fi Saturday. That's what it does.
Yeah. So now we need a tornado.
Yeah, exactly. Of whatever this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, because it is an introduced biological terraforming creature.
Yeah.
So the race that is introducing it to this planet may have just doctored the genetics a little bit.
Yeah.
Of course. Yes.
Or a lot.
Or a lot. Yes.
And
you want Zerg? This is how you get Zerg.
And then, the only way to defeat it is with gratuitous application of explosives.
Of course.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Naturally,
yeah.
Yes.
All right.
And so it's the last one of their kind. So, we only get rid of the one, but it's a swarm. So as long as one survives, it will eventually repopulate. So you have to get them all. That's how you set up the sequel.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. And they're so small, it's easy for them to hide or just like kind of stash one. Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Yeah,
I like them.
Yeah, that last scene is one of them just sort of burrowing into the mud.
Yes.
On the shoreline. Yeah.
What's that? Oh my God. I think maybe it's called Prey. It's where they're like insects, but they look like people.
Mimic?
Is it Mimic? Yeah, they're like insectoids, but when they stand a certain way, they kind of look like a person.
Yeah, I think that was Mimic.
Yeah, I think you're right. So maybe that's the last thing is it's evolved to mimic us because we are the dominant predator species. So that's like the last thing is it's a person, but then it's just like...
Okay, yeah.
Ooh, Invasion of the Pod People, another great B movie.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Yes.
Pod People or Body Snatchers, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, Pod People... Or Pod People in Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. They're pod people. Yeah.
It's been so long since I've seen that movie. I need to watch it again. We've got I think we've got a copy of it, the MST3K version of it.
Oh,
Nice.
gotcha.
So if we can ever find a VHS, VCR
To play
that'll
it.
actually run it and not eat it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's run over real quick again what we got. It swims. It eats fruits and vegetables. It is tiny. It persists in gangs of 11 to 25 individuals. Native environment is freshwater coastal. It has horns for defense. It is a celestial creature type. They are parasitic / invasive. It is the last of its kind, and it mimics the face of its last victim. Now, the most difficult question of all, what do we call it?
Hmm.
I kind of like sea stars. Since we said these things can kind of burrow and go, dragon's teeth aren't a terrible name. Is not a terrible name for them either, I don't think.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like a terrible like invectoids, like some stupid
Yeah.
sci-fi. Yeah, they're like
Yes.
invasive insectoids and.
Well, if we wanted to do like take a world
Salinid.
take a World War Z approach where we make a movie about a thing where the only thing the same about the two is the name.
Yes.
The old arcade game Sinistar.
Oh, okay.
Great name, actually. Yes, I
Call
love
them
it.
Sinistars.
Perfect.
I like it. Yep. I think that's the winner right there.
Okay.
Run.
All right. Well, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
That was cool. Thank you for letting me play. So I want to ask, since my game has a lot of charts, if you would indulge, would you be willing to run through a couple of these charts really quickly and to see if we can come up with just the 10-minute quick outline of what our movie would be?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
We can
sure.
do that.
Yeah.
All right. All you need are some D12s.
All right.
And if we want, we'll just bounce back and forth. So Ian, you roll the first one, and then James, you roll the second one, and I'll just kind of we won't end on them too much, but just kind of give you quickly how that would work for the setup.
Yeah,
so,
that
Ian,
would be great.
Yeah. So
give me the first one.
Do we just need one?
Yes, you might have to re-roll on occasion, but
That's okay. Yeah. So we got 9.
9 is action superhero. So we're
Okay,
dealing with a
good deal.
superhero movie.
All right.
All right. And then roll. I need 2 from you, James.
I need 2. I've got a 1 and a 12.
Our bad guy is robots. So we're looking at an Ultron situation.
Okay, nice.
Okay.
All right. And then we're going to figure out what the plot is. So Ian, I need 2 D12s.
All
Are we going
right. So we
Ultron
got
or are we going Maybe Austin Powers with the
well.
fembots?
we'll find out. 3 and 5.
3 and 5. So the plan is to open dimensional portals.
Okay.
That is our plot.
Definitely
It's
feeling
still
Ultron
Age of
on this.
Ultron.
Yeah.
All right. And then normally we would roll for 6 obstacles. We're not going to do that. We'll just do what our inciting incident is. So I need 1 or 2 more D12 rolls, please.
Okay. I've got a 5. I got 2 5s.
5 and a 5. Something or someone must be found.
Okay.
So that would be the start of our movie. And again, there's more rolls, but we're not going to go through all of them. But basically, that's how it works. You roll for genre, you roll for the bad guy, you roll for the plot, and then you roll for your obstacles. And then normally you roll for 6 obstacles and you organize them like which is Act 1, which is Act 2, and which is Act 3. So I think that makes sense. So probably...
I'm seeing like a Skynet type thing.
I mean, so we're superheroes, but again, we could also be like, B or C level, street level superheroes. Doesn't mean we got Superman or Hyperion. We got robots that are either from another dimension, or we have robots trying to open portals to other dimensions.
Okay.
And then we have to find, maybe it's the John Connor situation or the Sarah Connor. We got to find the leader of the resistance to help us now, type of a thing.
It's not a movie, but you know what we have? We have Doctor Who and Daleks.
Daleks or even Cybermen.
Cybermen, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Excellent. Well,
Okay,
thank you
now I need a TARDIS and that little the sound in the background. Yes.
Excellent.
All right. So another thing that we like to do with our guests whenever they come on is to give a shout out to someone else in the community. It could be a podcaster, content creator, artist, musician, just someone TTRPG adjacent. Who would you like to give shout out to today?
So I have a couple.
That's fine.
The first one is very self-serving, so please indulge me here. But Tom is one of my co-hosts, and he's basically sort of taken one of our shows and made it his own. Like, it used to be something I hosted, and he said, no, it's mine now. He's taking it over, and he's the only one that does it. And it's called Show and Tell. It's very basically similar to what we're doing now. It's a show where he interviews designers, often people who are running Kickstarters, but not always. I really feel like he's given a platform to indie designers that is into none right now. I think he asks very good questions. I think he highlights what makes these creators special and what makes their creation special. And I really think Show and Tell, like, it surprises me that Show and Tell isn't our most popular show, and it's not, and it should be. It's phenomenal. So anyone who's listening to this now, go listen to the Show and Tell episode, and I think you will be happy to hear the types of ways that Tom is highlighting those creators. Outside of my own stuff, because technically it's still part of my show, even though I don't do anything with it. I've been doing a lot of these. I've had the opportunity to interview and talk to a lot of different designers, and there's a couple that I had not heard of previously. One is called Snyder's Return, and the other is called Thinking Critically. I had an absolute blast on both of their shows. Again, I thought they did very good interviews. I thought they gave me an opportunity to really highlight what I was trying to do. Both of them are really small shows. If you go and look at their ratings on IMDb, they don't have a ton of reviews or ton of followers, and I think both of them should have more than they currently have. So I would either or go check out Snyder's Return podcast. Sounds like Zack Snyder thing has nothing to do with DC Heroes as far as I can tell. And then Thinking Critically.
Awesome.
Yeah, I am familiar with both of them. I've only listened to a couple of episodes of each. Back in, I believe it was in November, we had Greg Tito and Shelley Maznoble on whenever they were promoting their book Welcome to Dragon Talk, and I believe both of those shows also interviewed them, and I remember going and listening to their interviews in preparation for ours.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are great shows. I will second that. Yeah, go listen to them. And then finally, we're going to open the floor for you to plug your stuff. So the floor is open. Tell us where we can go and throw money at you.
Well, so right now, obviously, the Kickstarter is the biggest thing. As I said, we're right around $250 away, so we are super close to funding. Our goal was $5,012 because if you look at it just right, it looks like 5D12. But we're really close. So we're only shipping to the US. I know that limits us, but I was just really concerned about, again, having a successful Kickstarter that bankrupts me. So digital are only $12, gets you a PDF, and then it's $25 plus $6 for shipping. So $31 basically will get you a copy of the book and PDF. Again, everyone's going to get a copy of the PDF within a couple weeks of closing, which is March 22nd. And then as I go, I will probably send out drafts up until the final one. So you're going to get plenty of copies of the book that you can play right away. Beyond that, you can find me on Twitter. That's where I'm most active. I know Twitter is a hellscape at this point, but there are people in my life that I care a lot about that I only know because of Twitter. So I actually have a lot of love for that platform, and it's given me a lot. So I'm trying to hold on to it until they basically take it from my cold dead hands. So you can find me over there at the RPG Academy. At our shows, we have we have over 1,000 episodes. So if you like anything I said tonight, there's probably a show where I've talked about it more in depth. We have shows that help you play better as a DM. We have shows that just help you as a player as well, but like interview shows, highlighting crowdfunding campaigns, actual plays, some that are very serious and like, here's the rules, and others that's like, we don't really care about the rules, we're just having fun. So we just have enough shows. If you find something that you like, we probably have a bunch of episodes of it. And then if you're in November, if you're in Dayton, Ohio in November, come to a Catacon. We do a Kickstarter for that every year that'll go live in August. So that's another way that you can get your ticket early or just support what we try to do. Again, small RPG focused convention in kind of the Midwest, Ohio area. So even if you just want to throw a couple bucks as a donation, I will happily accept it. But Thank you both for having me on. I had an absolute pleasure hanging out with you tonight.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming out. This was a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to when you're actually able to send stuff out and release it, because this is going to be a ton of fun to play with people.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to play it, I would love to hear feedback, obviously, as we go.
Okay,
And then
great.
I don't know if you do actual plays on your stream, but if you're ever interested,
On
we could probably
occasion.
figure something out.
On
Okay.
occasion, yeah.
Excuse me. And and thank you very much for coming on. I had the privilege of being on one of your shows back at the end of the year, 2022. And I'm going to put links to your Kickstarter and your website and all of that stuff in the show notes. So if anyone wants to go and find you, they can do that.
Very cool. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, please send us an email, undercommontaste@gmail.com, or send us a direct message through our Twitter account @UCTHomebrew. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch at Undercommon Taste. We're also on Mastodon, Undercommon Taste at dice.camp. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/Undercommon Taste. That's where our write-ups go when I can find the time to do them. I have fallen way behind on Patreon stuff, and I need to get back into that. We are considering starting up a patron only once a month episode where we talk about some more long form nebulous content. So if you're interested in that, or if you just want to help support the show financially, please consider coming over and becoming a patron. We also have an itch store, undercommontaste.itch.io. Right now we have Beneath the Lake, which is our liminal horror adventure, and Forever Home, which is my solo RPG. Both are available for $3. And if you are a patron at any level, you also get a free copy of each of those.
Yes.
And finally, one last thing talking about itch that I wanted to bring up. Something that I'm going to start doing to get myself in the habit of generating more short form content. Right now on itch, there is a bundle going on, the Solo But Not Alone 3 bundle. It is a fundraising bundle for Jasper's Game Day, which is a gaming suicide prevention charity. That's the word I'm looking for. Suicide prevention charity. So it is a huge bundle. There's 149 games in it, and it's $10. And they are pretty close to their $32,000 goal. So I would encourage you to go and check that out, buy that. I'm going to start playing through the games in the bundle and doing like mini reviews of all the games. I'm going to start at the beginning of the list and work my way through and see how long it takes me to get through 149 games. So yes, I would strongly encourage you to go and check that out and support a really great charity.
Yeah, Jasper's Game Day is a great charity. And again, as we mentioned before, we've all hit some hard times. We've all hit some hard roads. Again, there's the suicide help hotline. If you don't feel there's anyone you can reach out to, or if you don't want to, air out your business. But if you can't reach out to them, please reach out to friends, reach out to family. You are not a burden. People would very much like to reach out and help you through your times rather than miss out on years of adventures with you.
Something I got disconnected for a second, so my apologies for jumping off. But in my work, I actually teach a course called Youth Mental Health First Aid. And in addition to other things, it talks about suicide prevention for youth. So I'm very passionate about that as a cause.
Yeah, excellent.
So thank you, Michael, again for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Stay safe, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
Happy gaming.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Undercommon Taste. Our theme song is Massacre Ann, written and performed by Mary Kroll and used with permission. You can find Mary online at marykroll.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Kroll. Our logo is by David Sutherland. You can find more of David's work on deviantart.com/David Sutherland or on instagram.com/Willex_73. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so stay safe, and we'll see you then.